Late Night News.
Tonight, another record for Ontario with COVID-19 cases skyrocketing in the GTA.
Even while following all the restrictions, all the recommendations, still we are trying, hitting the records in number of COVID cases. It's like, I'm shocked.
Amid the surge, confusion as rules in certain regions continue to change. And
how many children have to die? How many?
A call for help from the city's northwest end. Residents want action on gun violence after a stray bullet hit a 12-year-old boy yesterday. And a pandemic paradise? How one Toronto family is working through the winter in Barbados with the help of a tourism incentive program. Good evening, I'm Marivelle Tarouk. After breaking records yesterday, Ontario is once again seeing a new single-day record in COVID-19 cases. Today's count, 1,328. 200 more than Saturday's cases. Meanwhile, the rules and restrictions in many regions remain murky, with a new provincial system in place and some municipalities putting in restrictions of their own. Talia Ricci has more.
Happy birthday!
It's not quite this little guy's birthday yet, but with rising cases and spring-like November weather, his family decided to celebrate early.
The birthday is like, a couple of months down the road, and I'm like, okay, let's just do it this weekend.
Even as Ontario breaks a daily case record, two of the province's hotspots, Ottawa and York, are easing restrictions. Ontario had the same plans for Peel as well, but that region is adding stricter measures instead. Peel residents are asked to restrict contact to members of their own households, even in their yards. Local health officials say the region's numbers are headed in the wrong direction.
We are very much on a knife's edge in the region of Peel. Once our hospital capacity starts getting challenged, that's a sign that we really need to take these measures seriously.
Some experts say COVID fatigue is partly why cases are climbing. Private gatherings are a big problem.
We all know a party of 200 people, of course, that's going to be a huge transmission risk, but so is having 1,000 groups of, people of 15 at your house having dinner.
With rules always changing, keeping up can also be a challenge.
You can get together outside in the park and not have people come into your front yard. It is kind of sending a confusing message.
But many would rather see more restrictions than more cases.
If you don't have that in place, then people are going to exploit it and sort of take advantage of it. So I think it's a good idea.
Meanwhile, Toronto, which continues to see the highest number of daily cases in the province, will stay with current restrictions for another week. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Most of the restrictions in Peel region take effect at midnight, like the closure of banquet and event facilities. Stricter rules are also being implemented at bars and houses of worship. Angelina King has more on how those places will be affected.
How is everything with your meal this evening?
These two couples are having a farewell dinner before one moves away right in the nick of time. While they understand the need for tighter restrictions in Peel, they aren't 100% on board with the latest ones. No dining with people outside your household.
It's like taking a sledgehammer to a flea to say you have to close down the restaurants, and the restrictions of, that we couldn't do this tomorrow night, and yet we've been careful since March.
For restaurant owner Sabina Coulter, it's the last straw after months of struggles.
It's killing us.
Since the new restrictions were announced, she's had canceled reservations and worries about staying afloat.
June last year, 112,000 net. This year, 12,000.
Peel's medical health officer says it's all about keeping people from gathering now so they can later.
We really just try to encourage people to meet virtually and try to limit the amount of contact, at least for the next 2 to 4 weeks, so that we have a chance at Christmas.
That includes places of worship, which are encouraged to go strictly virtual. But what must be done in person has to be limited to 30% capacity or 50 people max. This imam says he'll be forced to turn people away during Friday prayers. Not only is he concerned about the negative mental health impact that can bring, but he worries people will instead gather privately to pray in an uncontrolled environment where they aren't masked or spaced out.
To me, that's a far healthier alternative than the possible repercussions of such a strict measure at this time.
At an evening mass in Mississauga, parishioners say they feel safe and would rather attend in person.
I like being part of the community and just feels good.
No, I'm not a virtual person. I have to be in person. It's one thing that we look forward to every Sunday.
But Dr. Lowe says places of worship are high risk, mainly because people tend to chit-chat before and after services. He says last month there were 50 instances when someone either attended a place of worship with COVID-19 or contracted the virus there, and they're investigating 3 outbreaks from just this weekend. These new restrictions will be reevaluated every 2 weeks. The only exception is weddings, which will be on hold until at least January 7th. Angelina King, CBC News, Brampton.
A North York community is still reeling after a brazen shooting yesterday afternoon. It left several teens with injuries, including a 12-year-old boy who was shot while walking home with his mother near Jane and Finch. Tonight, he remains in critical condition. Police say the young boy was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught in the middle of what was likely a gang shooting. Emotions are now high in the community, which isn't just grappling with gun violence, it's also seen a disproportionately high number of COVID-19 cases. As Farah Morali tells us, some community members now say it feels like they're fighting a battle on 2 fronts.
We feel failed by you guys, man.
Anger and frustration in a community rocked by the shooting of an innocent boy. As the mayor visited the scene, residents appealed directly to him for help.
So there has to be an answer. There has to be an answer to end this gun violence so that we're not having to come out here on a Sunday afternoon and see the devastation left behind.
These conversations taking place just meters away from where 30 rounds of bullets were fired. It was Saturday afternoon when 2 men got out of their car in this parking lot. They started firing at another car with 5 people inside. 4 were hit by bullets, including the 12-year-old boy on the street. He was out shopping with his mom.
This problem is unacceptable. It is heartbreaking. It is unfair to the people who live in these areas.
But the mayor heard from this community today, it's not just gun violence that's a source of frustration.
I should say, by the way, I heard quite a lot about how we have to do more with respect to the COVID-19 virus today as well.
The Jane Finch neighborhood has been grappling with a disproportionately high rate of COVID-19 infection. Health officials say people here are more likely to live in crowded housing, work precarious jobs they can't do from home, and rely on often crowded public transit, putting them at an increased risk.
Well, I think COVID has exacerbated every one of the issues and challenges that a community like this face and the people in the community face, right? It exposes and aggravates more of the problems of inequality and of poverty, of marginalization that people experience.
Because the systemic issues that are here are already affecting the community. Okay, that's compounded by COVID, and then it's super compounded by gun violence, continued gun violence.
Reverend Sky Starr works with youth in the community and is also a therapist. She says the gun violence and high rates of COVID-19 infections feels like a 1-2 punch.
And the community is always in a state of fear and anxiety, and you don't know what's going to happen next, because this is happening in the midst of COVID, on top of COVID, where people are feeling isolated and lonely and depressed.
How many children have to die?
Back at the scene of the shooting, the search for suspects continues, as does the search for answers. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
And Toronto police responding to another shooting tonight. This one near Queen West and Niagara Street. It happened just after 5:30. Police say they received multiple calls for gunshots and found an adult male with serious injuries at the scene. He was rushed to hospital and police are still searching for a suspect. Encampment residents at Scadding Court spoke out today, refusing to move out of the park and into the city's new respite center.
The better living centers are just a COVID concentration camp.
Plexiglass
Walls, no roof, no door, no privacy, a futuristic sci-fi horror prison-like cell, and it shouldn't be allowed.
This week, the city released pictures of the Better Living Center, set up to house 100 people, with hundreds more beds opening up by April. But as you heard, some compared the shelter to immigration detention centers, describing them as prison-like. Residents and advocates say the city shouldn't be pushing them out.
The city said, you have a choice. Either take the indoor option that we give you, or we're going to forcefully evict you from the park. And one would argue that this is not a choice.
The city says the goal is to move those experiencing homelessness to a safe indoor space. As for the encampments, the city says there's no deadline for anyone to move out, and anyone who accepts their offer to come inside will be assisted in doing so. Later in the afternoon, residents and supporters helped build winter-safe sleep pods for those still living in the park to weather the colder nights. For now, though, you couldn't have asked for better weather on a November Sunday. Temperatures staying in the high double digits. Bit of a throwback to the summer. Many were out and about enjoying the warmth and soaking in every last bit of sunshine they could. People out biking, playing a game of disc golf, even beach volleyball. Yeah, I had to keep reminding myself, Christina, that it's November.
I know, especially from seeing that beach scene. I got excited just watching that.
It was nice, yeah.
So I've got more good news, Maribel, on the way. A few more days of beautiful conditions, this extended period of September-like weather, beautiful warmth, plenty of sunshine. That's to come, but let's take a look at this Toronto Almanac. November 8th, 1975, we reached 19.4. We broke that record today. We reached over 20 degrees Celsius. Our Sunday overnight, 9 degrees, feeling like 8, very comfortable overnight. So let's talk about this cold front coming in. It's not going to affect us till midweek, though. Here it is over northwestern Ontario. That's going to be giving us some showers there. That's going to be pushing east. But southern Ontario, we are remaining dry. Toronto, Monday morning, 11 degrees. So we're going to be dealing with 11 degrees for the morning, but by Monday afternoon, Toronto 18 degrees, Guelph 20 degrees, Niagara Falls 20 degrees. Beautiful sunshine across the board for your Monday, and Monday overnight, very comfortable. Toronto 12 degrees, Hamilton at 13 degrees. Tuesday, another day of beautiful sunshine. Toronto at 20 degrees, Hamilton 20 degrees, Niagara Falls 20 degrees. It's not until Tuesday overnight that cold front is going to be making its way to southern Ontario. So here comes the rain and some gusty winds. So it looks like it's going to be a gusty system. So Tuesday overnight, Toronto 15 degrees, Hamilton 16 degrees. And then for November 11th, Wednesday, Remembrance Day rather, I'm going to have all those details for you in the long range forecast coming up.
Okay, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks, Christina. Well, working from home has become a reality for so many, but what if you could spend this winter working from a sunny island paradise? Well, thanks to a new initiative, it just got a little easier for people to do that. As Nazima Walji tells us, one Canadian family took Barbados up on a unique offer.
The way the story actually went was my husband woke up one morning and saw the CBC article that mentioned the welcome stamp. Talked about working in paradise, and he very quickly said we should move to Barbados for the winter. At first I thought my husband was crazy.
But after doing some research, Simi Kular and her family moved to Barbados to work remotely from the island.
Tourism is really the lifeline of the Barbados economy. So when COVID came upon us in March, April, it essentially brought the industry to a standstill. And this Barbados welcome stamp is a response to that, where we are seeking to rebuild the industry.
The Barbados Welcome Stamp is a chance for foreigners to live and work remotely in Barbados during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Because of the strength of our internet connectivity, you can pretty much work at any point on the island, whether it be a cafe, whether it be in your home, Some persons have even toyed with the idea of working on the catamaran while they have an afternoon sail.
Okay, so what are some of the protocols that you're following in terms of COVID regulations?
Yeah, we're still encouraging persons to be socially distant where possible, and obviously the wearing of masks is strongly recommended. We've managed the pandemic really well. Very early, we put a lot of infrastructure in place in terms of physical plant. In the event that persons contracted COVID-19, they could be safely isolated. We've had about 240 cases to date. And the program is perfect for families because when mom and dad are working remotely, the kids can actually be in school, whether in public or private school, and whether regardless of what level of education, whether primary, secondary, or post-secondary.
The family's now settled in.
The time period of getting ready to come here was a bit of a whirlwind. You know, you work during the week, kids are going to school, homework, dinner, all that, and then on the weekends, my kids get to do exciting things like surfing lessons and sailing lessons.
They did have to overcome one hurdle.
And the hardest thing was actually getting the paperwork done for our new puppy because they have so many restrictions. We really wanted our children to kind of look back at this time, and of course they're going to remember COVID, who isn't? But we wanted them to kind of think of 2020 as something really positive as well.
Nazima Walji, CBC News, Toronto.
Here is the host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek.
A look back at the life of Canada's own Alex Trebek. The legendary Jeopardy host passed away this morning after a battle with pancreatic cancer. More on the amazing life he lived coming up. Joe Biden spent his first full day as U.S. president-elect preparing for his coming duties and taking a look back at his past. After a church service in Wilmington, Delaware, he visited the graves of his late loved ones, his son Beau, his first wife, and his baby daughter. His team says he spent a quiet day with family before getting to work. Biden's priority is tackling the pandemic. He plans to put together a task force of experts and scientists Monday. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump took in another round of golf in Sterling, Virginia. Trump has not yet conceded the election, nor has he backed down from vows to dispute the results in several states. Famed Canadian television personality Alex Trebek has died. The host of quiz show Jeopardy was a daily presence in living rooms around the world for more than 3 decades, winning a reputation for sharp wit along the way. Deanna Sumanac-Johnson takes a look at the life of Alex Trebek.
Now, here's your host on Music Hop, Alex Trebek.
In the early 1960s, when he was a host of music and variety shows on CBC, 20-something Alex Trebek was already Alex Trebek, poised, confident, and knowledgeable in many subjects.
Well, we want to acquaint you people in the Toronto area with a lot of new talent.
Trebek's portfolio at CBC included hosting Reach for the Top. It offered viewers an early taste of what Trebek would become famous for: educational television presented in an entertaining way.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue à ce match Reach for the Top.
After hosting quiz shows in Canada and the U.S. through the 70s, Trebek landed the gig as host of Jeopardy in 1984.
And now, here is the host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek.
The show had been on and off the air before, but this time around, it found its perfect host. As decades rolled on, sitcoms and quiz shows gave way to reality shows and talent competitions. Still, Jeopardy stayed on the dial. Its host, Trebek, a uniquely calm and reassuring presence in primetime. One of the other things that didn't change? Trebek never forgot where he came from, as one Canadian Jeopardy contestant after another attested.
He even mentioned the show after I had won that he missed seeing me around.
My friends were saying, oh, I think he likes you because, you know, you're from Canada and he's still got a soft spot for Canadians. So.
Well into his 70s, Trebek continued to be plugged into pop culture, appearing on hit shows like How I Met Your Mother.
And you're Canadian?
Pork belly, gosh.
And Orange is the New Black.
Who has set the tone of the quiz show Jeopardy?
In 2017, he received the Order of Canada. Then, in 2019, a major setback.
This week, I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Now, normally, the prognosis for this is not very encouraging, but I'm going to fight this, and I'm going to keep working.
That he did, even making a trip to Ottawa while going through chemotherapy to support the Canadian Royal Geographical Society.
If you made a commitment to an important group, and a lot of people are counting on you, unless I'm dead, I'm coming.
True to his word, Trebek continued to host Jeopardy as long as his health allowed, ensuring that sometime in the future, a question like this may well come up on Jeopardy. A Canadian who educated and entertained millions with his polished and unexpected sense of humor. The answer? Who is Alex Trebek? Deanna Sumanac-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
And one of the best-known personalities from Hockey Night in Canada has also died. Howie Meeker overcame a wartime injury to win Rookie of the Year and the Stanley Cup in his first season with the Toronto Maple Leafs. 3 more championships followed. In the 1970s, a new career began. Hockey Night in Canada analyst. His trademark phrases of "golly gee" and "keep your stick on the ice" won him generations of fans. Howie Meeker died just days after his 97th birthday. Well, here's a look at the harbor front tonight. Gorgeous weather this evening and possibly for a few days to come. Your long-range forecast is coming up. A parade of cars passed by Markham Stouffville Hospital today, thanking frontline healthcare workers.
I think it lets them know that we haven't forgotten about them and that we appreciate everything that they do. Even 8 months into this, and numbers are climbing and the world is hectic, but we're still here for them.
Vehicles drove by the emergency wing, honking their horns and cheering, letting workers know their community is still behind them. Great gesture, because it still isn't over for so many of us, for all of us, I guess, Christina.
Absolutely. Now, I've got some more good news for everybody watching at home. We've got some more days of beautiful warmth and beautiful sunshine. Had to mention that this is the warmest streak in November's history for the city of Toronto. So let's talk a little bit about this long-range forecast. We talked about this cold front coming in, bringing us some activity for Northern Ontario. We are going to see this Tuesday overnight, pushing into Wednesday morning. Of course, Wednesday is very important. It is November the 11th, Remembrance Day. Are we going to be dealing with rain for Wednesday? It looks like that's going to have cleared up by Wednesday morning. That's the good news. Now, it is a gusty system coming in. It's going to be warm and breezy Tuesday evening into our Wednesday, but it looks like by Wednesday morning, that rainfall is going to have cleared up. So Wednesday, Toronto at 17 degrees, Hamilton 17 degrees. You're seeing this rainfall, but the temperatures are still going to be okay. It's going to be more of a gentle and gradual cool down. So here is your Monday at 18 degrees, your Tuesday at 20 degrees. Here is that rainfall for your Wednesday at 17 degrees. And then we're going to gradually cool down by the time next weekend comes around. Plenty of sunshine for your Thursday and Friday for Toronto, but you can see we're down to 10 degrees. And in the nation's capital, Monday at 19 degrees, Tuesday at 20 degrees. Here is your rainfall for Wednesday and the gradual cool down by the time we meet again next weekend. Have a great week, everybody.
All right. Thanks so much, Christina.
Thank you.
And that is our show for you tonight. We're going to leave you with more shots of that beautiful day out there. Have yourselves a great night, everyone.